Hey, now.
All right. Welcome to the Good Life, everybody. Here we are today. We've got Chris, Kobi, myself, and the topic for today is going to be entrepreneurship, opening up a business.
Oh
So
yeah,
we are all super excited to be doing this today because the three of us are passionate, like just advocates for entrepreneurship. I mean, for us, I'll just kind of give like a quick summary. I mean, I love it. Like, why is this important for the good life? Let's start there. I love it because when you jump onto the entrepreneurial train, you are basically taking so much greater control of your time and money. A big reason why I got onto this is because I got a lot of no's when it came to like more value for my time, when I felt like I wasn't really being rewarded properly, or maybe I felt like in construction with long hours just being used. And so I was like, you know what, never again. So that's why I took this route, and I get to help other people get out of their own situations. So, man, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over. Like, guys, like tell the world, like, what do you guys think about entrepreneurship?
man. I'll jump in because this is everything to me. You guys know because you get a chance to talk to me on a pretty regular basis. But I just am such a firm believer in entrepreneurship, right? I talk about this difference between the employee mindset and the entrepreneur mindset because I really believe that this is a mindset. That's what it is. It's not just about owning a business or having some work that you do. This is about how you think about life. And I think we go through life either thinking about life like an employee or thinking about it as an entrepreneur. And I think this is one of the things that we have to start to master and start to really grasp if we want to get to the good life. Because when someone else controls your time and someone else controls your money, life does not get easier, right? Let's just make sure, I think we're all clear on that, right? Like if someone else, and again, there's nothing wrong with having a job, right? Like again, there's people, not everyone can be an entrepreneur, I get it, but there's a certain mindset to have that says like, if it is to be, it's up to me. If something's going to happen in my life, good, it's going to be up to me. It's not going to be up to my circumstances or my job or the government or anything external. That becomes a mindset. And that's a mindset that I've adapted. I think we all start off having a job, right? It's just kind of the way things go. And you go, and for me, went through the whole restaurant hospitality world. That's actually what I'm trained in. A lot of people may not even know that, but I have a culinary arts degree, right, and a food service management degree, and I went through the restaurant world, hospitality world, line cook, prep cook, jump front of the house, and so I understood what it was to work and have a job. But I also realized that wasn't gonna really get me to where I wanted to be in life. I realized this 70-hour work weeks and, being overworked and underpaid probably wasn't going to help me live my best life, live like the good life. So I started seeking other things, and entrepreneurship is one of those things that just kind of fall in your path when you start to think, what is it that you want out of life? And that's a big question that people have to ask themselves. And again, goes back to that entrepreneur mindset, because there's not many employee-minded people that are asking themselves, right? What do they want out of life? It's a big question, but I highly recommend that we think about it. I started thinking about what I want out of life. And when you get to answer some of those questions, then you start to determine the path that you want to go down. And that's why entrepreneurship popped up. So, I'm excited to talk about entrepreneurship. I'm excited to teach people it and really just understand this different mindset that's needed. But it really will help you get to, the place you want to be in life. So I'm a big fan of it. Kobi, talk to me.
Yes, sir. You guys can hear me, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just want to make sure. So, obviously I think this is a topic that maybe we expand on over the next few weeks. I think there's a lot of different components to it. And some of the components that come to mind, obviously I'll tell, my story about how I became an entrepreneur. Tell my story about how I became an entrepreneur, But I think I was always an entrepreneur, man. Like I said, I got my master's in the streets, and I really did. And it was really just I remember sitting in my dad's a barber, so my dad's an entrepreneur. And I remember sitting in his barbering chair while he was giving me one of them signature Asare cuts. If you're in Richmond, Virginia, go ahead and check out my guy, the sharpest hand in the land.
Used to be me too. I was doing that a while back.
And I remember telling him, man, I'm not gonna have a job for very long. Now I had no idea how, why, how, like what's the steps, what did I even mean? But I just knew that the employee life wasn't for me. When I was younger, it was more about control, right? It was more about having a ton of ideas and wanting to act on them and feeling a little constrained by and I'll say not just by control, right, but also purpose. I just felt like the jobs that I had, I felt like everybody around me drank the Kool-Aid in order to feel like they had purpose, right? But I just didn't buy that. I was like, okay, great. Yeah, in orientation, you're telling me how this company wants to, is here to impact the world and do this and make these changes and do this. But when I sit in meetings, what I hear is, all right, how do we make more money? What's the bottom line? All right. And I think, we really have to address, like, what is the heart of business? So I talked to a lot of folks and I think on the surface, it's like, well, duh, isn't that what a business does? And like, da, 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 da. But really, when you trace it back, right, when you trace it way, way back, a lot of business principles, can be found in the first few books of the Bible. And not to get religious, but a lot of principles in business that carry on now or exist there. A lot of money, how to handle money, but not just how to handle money, but business. And one of the things I pull from that is that it is not only honorable, but it is of like a higher purpose for you to be a business person, right? It's not just something you do for money. It's something you do as a service to yourself, your community, and to your creator. Like there's a sense of honor that comes with being an entrepreneur that I think has been lost over time, as the focus has been more on generating revenue and has been more on growing big, and just like, and what I'll talk about here a little bit too is that, like, what are the different types of entrepreneurs? Not all are created the same. I think a lot of conversations that I have with folks is like, it's all about the sort of the Silicon. I'm here in San Francisco. It's all about the Silicon Valley type of business, right? Let me start something and go public and go really big and then sell it and exit. Not all life is like that. Not all business has to be like that. So, that's a few of my opening thoughts there, and I'll let you guys jump in if you got something to piggyback on that. But if you don't, you already know I got more. So,
yeah, I think, man, you touched on a lot there, man. I think the first thing that really stuck out to me was like the honor piece, and I think that's so true. I was on the phone earlier with a guy who used to own like a garbage truck company, right? And he got so much fulfillment for like basically employing people, for helping them, like, make their expenses, like basically always keeping them like consistently on the payroll and everything, handing them their bonus checks, and they had a great morale. They had so much respect for him, and that entire employment for, I don't know the exact number, anywhere from, like, it was probably 20 to 100 employees. They would not have jobs. You know what I mean? They'd be somewhere else. Maybe they wouldn't be enjoying their culture. Maybe they wouldn't be enjoying the whole atmosphere of it. But they got consistent pay to like take care of their families, and that's like something you bring to the table. That's a bit of that paying back thing. And you also mentioned how you're really doing a service for your community. Well, if you notice for example, as an entrepreneur, you notice like a deficiency in the market, an opportunity for something where customers or people in general have a need, and it's like there's either friction in getting that need or it's simply not available. If you can help them like take care of that, and you make their life easier, you get them what they're looking for. I mean, that's the same thing. You're paying your way back. So I think those are some good points, man. Man, the knowing that something is your baby, your creation, is just so fulfilling, man. I don't even know how to begin. Like it's so warming. And so yeah, Chris, I'll hand it over to you, man.
No, 1,000% true. That last thing that you said though, that there are different types of entrepreneurs. Like we have to really define kind of what entrepreneurship is, and because it looks different to everyone. I've always equated it to kind of what you said, Stu, about having the need, right? Like, are you filling a need? There's people that can create businesses just to make money, and there's people that are actively trying to serve a need. They see that there's something wrong. They see that there's something missing, and they then create a business around it in order to, help supply whatever needs to get supplied, right? And I think that has been my definition of entrepreneurship, and finding a way to create business around things that are important. And that might go back to what Kobi was saying a little bit about just like why are bigger companies now, or what's the motive behind big companies. Me and my buddy Terrell, we did a podcast episode where we were talking about an intrapreneur versus an entrepreneur, right? And is it possible to be an intrapreneur, meaning inside of a company you have the entrepreneurial bug and you still make changes and you still do all those things, but inside of a company? And I always told him that wasn't possible, because at the end of the day, that CEO, the C-suite, like they're going to make the decisions. Like it's not going to be that you get to create things and make a full change inside of that type of system. Whereas being the entrepreneur, you have the ability to create and make the changes that you really want to without anyone, right, stopping you, for lack of a better term, right? So again, I think there's a lot of different ways we can go down it, but we do have to define like what is entrepreneurship to you, because it might be different. Some people think that, just like you said, could be like it might be the Silicon Valley type, right? The person that says, oh, well, I'm an entrepreneur because I put together a pitch deck, right? Like I raised money, right? I understand how CAC and LTV works. I understand, all of the number side of it. So that makes me an entrepreneur. At the same time, there's some lady in Iowa that's putting together jelly out of her house, who's also an entrepreneur because, right, someone wants her jelly and she has a market for it, and everything in between. So again, with that word entrepreneurship, I don't think it can be blanket, but yeah, I think we do have to define, what is entrepreneurship? How are we looking at it,
Yeah. and as I'm sitting here thinking, how do I organize my thoughts, as I have quite a bit of thoughts to share on this, right? How do I organize it? So I came up with kind of like my top 5 things I would want somebody to walk away with. So if you guys are down, I'll go ahead and share that now, and you can riff off of that.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
All right, bet. So number 1 is, what is your why? Like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you don't want to listen to anybody? Are you doing it because you're pushing away authority at all costs? Are you doing it because you're like, what, middle finger to any type of boss whatsoever? Because listen, there's a lot of pros and cons to that, right? As someone who's been in that position, there's a lot of pros and cons to that, and I think you have to be strategic, not emotional, right? You have to be strategic and not emotional. So know your why. Why are you doing it? Are you trying to build something for your family? Are you trying to create over time? Because there's a lot of different ways to go about it, as Chris just stated on. So that's my number 1. and
Hey,
we can expand on this. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, because I want to jump in, because it's so funny that you would say that. I was literally watching a bit of a Shark Tank episode where I think Barbara Corcoran said this to the girl, like she quit her job, or she got fired from her job or something like that, then cashed out her 401k and went all in on this business. And Barbara said something. She was like, you know, a lot of times people that leave jobs or get fired from a job think that it's a sign that they should start a business because they got fired from that job or they left that job. And she was like, really, it's just a sign that you're emotional and you might want to go get another job first and then start your process as an entrepreneur, right? It doesn't necessarily mean just because you lost the job that was the sign that you had to go become an entrepreneur. And we see that happen all the time. Some people just really hate their job so much, or they get fired or something crazy. And then they're just like, this is meant for me to go build a business. Like, let me just go create a business. And that's not the way it works, right? Like, there has to be some other things there. And just like Kobi said, right? Like, what is your why? Is it just because you got fired and you feel like this was the opportunity? Do you have any deep-seated reasons as to why you are starting a business? That becomes the things that start to drive you and pull you, because this life, this entrepreneur life, isn't the easiest. It's not easier than having a job, right? Jump in, Stu.
Well, I love how we're talking about this in the whys, and specifically like the breaking down between, you know, strategy and emotion. And man, you know, Chris, I love where you took that with that example. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there to everybody. Like, man, if you're getting fired from your job, I would seriously urge you to I don't know why my Instagram keeps cutting out, man. I would seriously urge you to consider, like Chris said, getting another job and building on your entrepreneurial base from there. Because if you're getting fired from your job, it means that you are in an agreement with an employer to do X, Y, and Z, and you're not doing X, Y, and Z, even though you have given him your word that you will do that. That is, like, to me, if you're gonna quit because you have a plan, or if you're gonna quit because you're absolutely insane, but you know yourself and you have full confidence in being able to do that, man, go for it. Just realize that the smarter, more logical thing to do is have a plan. I'll just leave that there. That's my dad coming out. But overall, if you're getting fired from your jobs, like, do not proceed with entrepreneurship, because at the end of the day, if you don't like your job and you're still not meeting the requirements enough to even just maintain the job, what makes you think that the days that you don't like running a business, doing the back end work, that you're going to stick with it?
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I love where you guys took that.
That's huge. That's a huge part, because again, people don't understand, like, as you go down the journey of entrepreneurship, if your job had you in your feelings, you have to be able to control your feelings on the side. Otherwise, there's no way for you to get work done and be effective, right? Mm-hmm. It's a completely different ball game. So yes, again, back to that point, like, understand why you are doing this, right? Because that's
sorry.
No, go.
Well, yeah, understand why you're doing this. So I was just gonna say, like, could be like, so what's number one? Just to recap on that.
So yeah, number one is know your why. What is your why?
Know your why. Word. Okay.
Right? Why do you want to start a business? Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Right? What is it that's driving you? I think really, like, dive into that. Did you guys want to move on, or you want to keep
Let's do it? Let's do it.
Yeah, number two.
All right, cool. Beautiful. Number two, you know, I always come with the book recommendations. I got 2 books for you. If you are looking to, if you believe you know entrepreneurship is the way to go for you, I think 2 books you must read is The Cash Flow Quadrant. And to go into that a little bit, you know, the cash flow quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki talks about, you know, the 4 different types of individuals that exist. One being employee. On the left side of quadrant, you have E and S, which is 1 being employee, S being self-employed. On the right side of the quadrant, you have business owner and investor, right? And each one of those are very different in how they function. They're very different in the type of life that they live. They're very different in how they generate money, and they're very different in, like, the type of energy that's used up over time. So I think you definitely want to take a look at that. And then the second book I think you should take a look on before I let you guys comment on this is the Tax and Legal Playbook. The Tax and Legal Playbook really it sounds a little dry, but you said you want to be an entrepreneur, right? So dive in, right? It really lays out, kind of the background legal structure and how to really understand how things function, right, on a higher level. So those are my two must-haves. Dive in, and let me let you guys comment on that. The Cash Flow Quadrant, again, by Robert Kiyosaki, speaking about employees, self-employed, business owner, and investor. And then, if you have touched on the Tax and Legal Playbook, go ahead and comment on that as well. I'm gonna pass it on to you guys.
Yeah, man. Like there's a bunch I can say from that. So first off, I haven't read Tax and Legal Playbook, so that's going to be added to my list. Cash Flow Quadrant for sure is a staple. It's a staple for anybody that is breaking out and branching out to become the entrepreneur, because you've got to understand how we make money. And the biggest eye opener, and I want people that are listening to go read that book, because again, if you're getting into entrepreneurship, you probably should. But one of the biggest things that you can take from it is that there's a difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. Okay? There's a difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. And a lot of times people don't understand that difference. The way Robert Kiyosaki defines the difference is that self-employed is someone that runs a small business, right? Like if you think of your small restaurants, your, hairdressers, barbers, even, lawyers that own their own practices, or doctors that run their own practice, they're technically self-employed. It means that, like, if you don't go do the work, if that person is the fixture of the business, everything is built around that person. So if they don't go do it, if it doesn't happen, their business won't move forward. In the self-employed side, which is where most people sit that branch out to be entrepreneurs, right? In that self-employed side, you can make really good money. That's where people get confused, because you can make very good money, but you'll never have time. You'll never have time freedom, because it's always based on you, right? And so if you work 90 hours, 100 hours a week, yeah, you can make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, but you'll never have freedom, right? Think of any of those doctors. Think of surgeons. People that want to take vacations, they can't, because they get paid by them doing the work, right? So that is a big difference, and it talks about it in that book, Cash Flow Quadrant. So it's huge to go pick that up. And I'm gonna throw another book in the ring for everybody. This one also a staple for those of you that are building a business or want to build a business. It's called The E-Myth. The E-Myth.
Come on, man. Stop reading my notes.
The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Okay.
Running back for the folks in the back.
Listen, they need to hear it. They need to hear it. The E-Myth. E, the letter E dash myth. MYTH by Michael Gerber. Stands for the entrepreneurial myth. Some real big key takeaways in that book. I'm not going to drop them all on you right now, but one of the biggest takeaways in that book is you need to find a way to work on your business and not work in your business. Find a way to work on your business, bird's eye view, instead of working in your business. Most people work in their business all their life, and they never take the bird's eye view to work on their business, that they can have freedom eventually. Huge book. Definitely recommend you pick it up.
Man.
So Stu, before you drop your thoughts right there, I just didn't want to hit you guys too hard today, as we will be extending this out. I believe we should and will be extending this out. There is quite a few there, but Stu, before you drop your thoughts in the books here, if you're picking up the ebooks, you also got to pick up the one thing, right? Because not only are you looking at working on your business, but you got to look at where do you actually fit. You may not fit as the entrepreneur. You may be the creative and have a business built around you, right? But if we look at, for example, we take LeBron James, right? Listen, LeBron's success doesn't work if he is all the hat, if he's wearing all the hats. You understand, right? He's got Rich Paul. He's got Maverick. He's got forget the third person, but he's got a team around him. And guess what? Nobody else on the team can be LeBron. But LeBron can't be LeBron and be everybody else on the team. So I think not only the E-Myth really is talking about that, but it's really talking about like, where do you fit in your business? Because I find a lot of entrepreneurs, it may be that, you fit somewhere in the business, but you're not necessarily the entrepreneur, right? Go ahead, Stu. Go ahead and drop your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Or
you
anything
guys,
else.
first of all, you guys are just nailing it right now. Like, at the end of the day, a lot of the reasons why people get into entrepreneurship is, because they want more free time. They want passive income. They want to have like just so much going on without the 90-hour weeks. And what they're talking about here, that bird's eye view, that stepping out of it, that is allowing you to delegate more and more over time. And then that's how you step back and you stop working long hours. And, my book recommendations are actually going to be of a different sense. Those are some excellent ones on the fundamentals of business, tax, legal, like the concepts behind running a business. I'm going to talk about the emotional side. First and foremost, if you are afraid to start a business because you're afraid of failure, or if you're afraid of what people might think if it goes wrong or whatever, I highly encourage you to read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Free yourself from...
Y'all need to get out my notes now.
Seriously, that's awesome.
These are great books, man. These are all great books.
So invaluable, because I literally consider myself like a recovering people pleaser. And I always said yes, and I followed the path, and I started looking up, and like Chris was saying, I started realizing, wait. I'm in an employee mindset. My whole ideology is I want to get to the next level. But if I keep looking up these next levels, none of these guys have what I want. Why am I doing this? Why am I chasing this? So I had to all of a sudden be like, wow, I need to do something different. What am I going to do? I'm afraid. And I'm afraid of what people might think, what they might say, my whole community that I'm set behind. But one thing I realized is your true community will stand beside you and help you go on that route. Everybody else wasn't there to have you back in the first place. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, big book. I think the second one, if you want to focus more on how to cultivate leadership in a company that you are growing, it's a book called Legacy by James Kerr. It's about how the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team, completely revitalized their culture. And they did it by making it so it's not just the coaches, it's all the way down to the players, the captains, the players, etc. So great way to build leadership in a company. And man, I had one more. What was my other one going to be?
Don't hit him. Don't give him all, bro. Don't hit him too hard.
Hey, you guys have
You can't give him everything.
Don't hit him too hard, bro. We got more.
But that's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, that's two great ones right there, man. Don't hit him too hard now.
But yeah,
don't hit him too hard. But
the
guys,
emotional side is huge, guys. Don't forget about that. So if you're listening to that, like, don't forget, like, you can read all the business books you want, but you have to be able to understand your emotions and your mind.
The emotional side is almost everything in the bit, right? Like I have, Warren Buffett says, can't control your emotions, can't control your money. Very, very similar to being an entrepreneur. You can't control your emotions. There's no way you're going to be able to make it in the business world. It's just not. It's almost impossible, right? Like one of the reasons, and I've heard this over and over again. One of the reasons people fail or stop being an entrepreneur and just kind of go back to a job, it's because. And as an entrepreneur, you are faced with yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly, every single day. It's like looking into a mirror every single day. And you have to constantly be looking at yourself and what you're good at, what you're not good at, and all of your glory and all of your shame and all of it every day to get through business, because you're out there, right? You're creating business, you're doing those things. And most people don't have the stomach or the courage all the time to constantly face themselves and get better. And that's what it takes. And that 100% dives into your emotional state, your emotional well-being, and how you choose to use your mind to either help you get to where you want to be or, right, allow it to control you away from those things. So you're right there, Stu, 100%.
Can't overstate that, guys. Can't overstate that. If you can't control your emotions, can't control your mind or your money. Guys, I'll say this, man. I'll even swap out the word control there. I'll say, in terms of like, not really about control to me. It's more so like, are you in tune? Or are you just feeling all these things and you have no idea what's going on, what's up? And it might be a minute you're in the middle of a board meeting and you erupt, right? And so I think really being in tune with that. So we'll definitely, the message I wanted to get out there before we continue to number 3 of the top 5 things we should know as entrepreneurs, or we're offering today as entrepreneurs to entrepreneurs or to future entrepreneurs, is your business is just an extension of you. All right. Chris stated that, you're faced with a mirror all the time, right? Your business is just an extension of you. And what I mean by that is that how you are is how your business will run. Right. So it's really, that's why entrepreneurs are probably really drawn to self-improvement, but also not just that. I want to go back to, like I said, the first 4 or 5 books of the Bible. If you're a reader here, really the principles of business as these folks in all these books talk about is all laid out right there. Right. It's all laid out right there. You just gotta understand enough to be able to like pick it out. Right. And it all really starts with how business was approached back, right? How was it approached? It being a thing of honor, it being a contribution to society, it being your purpose aligning up, it being a thing that's like really highly regarded. The money is simply an indication of how well you're doing all those other things. So I like to repeat that, man. The money is simply an indication of how well you're doing all those other things. And I think where we get lost, or where I see things get lost, is when the focus really just becomes on the money. But on top of that, right? Companies try to fake things as if, they really are doing these other things when they're not. They're really chasing the money. So imagine a dog wagging his tail. It's really flipped. It's the tail wagging the dog, right? It's the tail wagging the dog, in that they focus on the money, but they really pretend like they're focusing on these other things that actually really matter. To give you a quick example, how many of you have ever been, and this is to you, Stu and Chris, right? How many of you have ever been in a company that will put out, or company or institution, let's say that, because there's a lot of companies, we think just like, Fortune 500, but a school is an institution. It's a business, it's a company, right? You ever been in an institution that will, put out a cultural sensitivity little letter, or like we'll provide, cultural sensitivity training. I've been in this, I've been head of this, I've been part of this for a very long time, where it's complete nonsense. Nobody on that C level, nobody that's actually in power actually cares, right? Or is actually out to really make a difference in that area. They would never touch it if it didn't affect their money. Right? They would never touch it if it didn't affect their money. Right? So, as soon as the money started getting touched, that's when the NFL cared about what Colin Kaepernick was doing. As soon as the money got touched, that's why the NBA got behind LeBron for all of these different pro whatever movements in the Black Lives Matter shirts and whatever, right? So, what's happened here is that it's been flipped. And I think we have to be really careful about that, right? What's wagging what? What's wagging what? Is it the dog wagging the tail, or the tail wagging the dog? All right.
Is there confusion?
Go there?
Is there confusion? Like, do we think that the dog is wagging the tail? Like, we don't, like, I believe every big company is profit first. As much as they might try to tell you otherwise, like, I don't believe that any of them are, right? Like, it comes down to, especially if you're a publicly traded company. If you're a publicly traded company and you want to try to get us to believe that, like, you care more about the people than the bottom line, but yet your shareholders are not, that's not the conversation happening in board meetings. Like, I don't know who's confused. I'm not confused, right? Like, this is why I said you couldn't be an intrapreneur, is because, like, at a certain point, it's not going to change. Like, that's just the way it is. It's going to be the money. That's not right. That's not how I would run a business or build a business. But if we're going to talk Fortune 100s, like, that's common. Yeah. Is that just
Oh
me
yeah,
thinking that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
No, I think
I don't even
profit
know if it's
first
a question of
is a
confusion.
given.
Go ahead, Stu.
Well, I think profit first is a given. I mean, no one going out to start a business, no matter how great your intentions are, how poor your intentions are,
right.
doesn't have profit first, because that's longevity, that's lifespan.
See, I
But
disagree with that.
how?
Smaller
Very
companies, like non-Fortune 100, before you start to get into this, like, you know, raising money inside of some form of the stock market, right? Like where you're a publicly traded company, you can build a company about customer first, your employees second, shareholders third.
Well, we're on
Of
different
course.
pages. We're on different pages. At the
Of
end of the day,
course.
your company has to make money if you want your company to survive.
Of course.
Make that so okay. So we're on different pages.
So
here.
I'm not on that same page. I don't believe that's such a given. And what I'm pointing to, I believe that is part of the problem. That we all believe it is a given. I think that is part of the problem.
How does it change?
What do we all
How does it
believe is a given?
change?
I don't even feel like I'm arguing about the same thing as you guys are talking about right now. So like what?
Yeah, no. Go ahead, Stu. Finish your thought.
Well, I guess just to elaborate, like the way I interpret it is like, you know, at the end of the day, like take all morality out of business. As a business owner, your business has to make a profit. Now, to talk about what you were going into could be like when you see those things come out, those like, oh, we got this training coming up, oh, we got this movement coming up, whatever. None of those things would exist if it wasn't for, as you're getting at, them getting some type of slap on the wrist or seeing some type of profit margin thing. Because in reality, the companies that already have a very diverse, inclusive, or, you know, very like good culture, they don't need to come out and do that stuff. It's already there. They might have a refresher, but you can immediately tell when you're in a company and you don't see that type of thing going on around you. You don't see like a very warm atmosphere with a lot of open-mindedness, and all of a sudden you see this diversity thing come out or whatever the case. Yeah, it's like, what are you guys talking about? Like you've been a part of this company longer than I have, and you haven't done anything about it. And this is like the most obvious band-aid in the world to just, you know, cover your ass. So yeah, I mean, I guess for me, like, you know, every company has to figure out what their mission statement is, and then they have to also have the profit as a large part of that. Like they have to make more money than they spend. They have to cover all their expenses. And that's where I was getting at with that profit is the number one priority. It's just a question of like, what are your other priorities here? Like if you just wanted to, if profit wasn't your number one priority, you would have made a nonprofit. Well, hold on a second. Maybe. But,
maybe not.
You would have done charity work. You know,
Right.
Maybe that's a better example. But, you know, there's more things you can do with the company than just focus on the money. And I really like your idea about the dog wagging the tail and vice versa, because I do think that is exactly what I think you're nailing that. Like that is 100% happening in our society. Like a lot of businesses and companies are taking advantage of political and cultural movements in order for them to look good in the eyes of the public. And a lot of times they get called out accurately. And so, yeah, I think it's a great point you brought up.
Got you, bro. Got you. So I want to preface what I'm saying by this, man. I've never, ever shared a thought to get agreement.
Okay.
It's not a damn thing I say that's for agreement purposes. It's I put it out there, and what people think is what they think, and I'm open to all feedback whatsoever. So it's not really a matter of debate. It's not really a matter of argument for me. It's really a matter of what I see, and from where I'm standing, right? And what I see from where I'm standing is part of the problem, and this is why I go back again to the first few books of the Bible and what we have lost as it being the true heart of what business is. There are tons of businesses that exist that are not nonprofits, that are not profit first. There's also tons of big businesses that we know that don't even turn a profit for a very, 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 very long time. They're in the hole for I don't know how long. and this is something I want to dive, because I do want to, I've stayed kind of tight to this top 5 right here. This is something I want to dive into maybe on a later episode, so we can backtrack and dig as to why. But even, for example, even the richest man in Babylon, for example, right, goes into this a little bit. And the reason I'm saying that, and that's my whole analogy, if you truly understand the dog wagging the tail, that the money is second, the energy is first. I've said this probably on many, many episodes, right? What is the money is a representation of the energy that's put out. But what's flipped is that now it's the money going out and the energy comes second. And I believe that's part of our problem. That's why companies are so wasteful, right? That's why companies will fake caring or fake energy to get the money, right? And I won't go too much deeper into that, but I think the assumption that it is number one profit first leads us down the road that we're going down. And I'll point out to the fisherman and the businessman parable that profit and more profit and more profit is what drives everything. Well, that's driving us off a cliff, man. That's driving us off a cliff. So I truly believe that for us to we've separated, right? We've separated the energy from the money, and then we put the money first. And until that's reversed, I think we're going to continue to see a lot of the major big problems that everybody who hops on anything claims to care about, but we've never fixed, right? World hunger, pollution, all these things, right? It will never be fixed because the tail is wagging the dog, not the dog is wagging the tail in all businesses. That's just where I stand, and that's kind of what I see. Before I move
I'm in
to
agreement. No, I was going to say I'm in agreement. I think there might be some, and maybe we do go into this on another episode or whatever and really dive in. But there is, maybe this is semantics. Maybe it's how we're using the word profit.
It's kind of
like,
how it feels.
Yeah, but like, let's make no mistake. Like, if you don't make money, like, you won't be in business, meaning you won't be able to serve anyone that you're like. It's like in my business, it is about people. Like, it's not about the sale. It's not about the making of the money. It's about the service and the need. However, if I did not ever make money, I would not be able to continue to serve.
Of course.
So, right.
Of course.
So like,
notice I never said anything that contradicts that.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, we might just be having, like, this might just be around the word of profit, because if we're saying the same things, but just make that point clear that, like, I understand what Stu's saying, but I also understand what you're saying could be like you can be mission centric and like have the good energy is what runs the business that brings you money. Absolutely. But the energy that goes in has to at some point bring you money. Otherwise, you can't keep doing the thing. You'd be out of business.
No disagreement, Chris. No disagreement.
Okay.
And I love this because this to me is the heart of kind of what the issue is, right? Never once did I say profit isn't important in a business. Never once in this entire discussion. What I'm pointing to is what's the order of importance.
Right.
What's the order of importance, right? So, for example, let me take it into health, right? You can focus on the amount of weight you're lifting, or you can focus on the intention behind the movement that you're doing. Very different things. You need both, right? But the order dictates what wags what, right? So and then when we push the assumption, as in like not question the number one, see, that's what was said, right? The number one purpose of any business is drive a profit. I disagree. That's what I'm saying. The order is of huge importance, right? And that is going to dictate whether you go left or right. That's what I'm saying.
Understood. And you would say most businesses are thinking that it's profit first and they have it out of order.
That's the assumption that we were all like before I hit the brakes, right? That's the assumption that we were kind of running with, right? Like, well, the number one is whoa. That's what I'm saying. When you go back to what the heart of business used to truly be, right? If you go to really, you can tap any other religious text, but specifically for me, what I know would be the Bible, and of that, the Torah. And looking at what is it that when a father teaches their son about business, what's the first lesson? It's not about profit, right? It's not. And the same thing when you put it in the area of health.
What is it about?
Energy.
Like just about, okay. So to me, like I think really where we got hung up here is money is energy. We've all talked about this. Now,
the money is representation of energy.
Okay. Originally, before money was even invented, bartering was how everything was done, which is an exact exchange of value, an exact exchange of energy. Now, at the end of the day, every business owner back then was like, man, I'm going to give value, I'm going to get value, but I have to get enough value to keep me going. And that's pretty much, I think, what we're all in agreement here on. Like, now, at the end of the day, like, if a company is so hell-bent, which I have seen before, and it is tragic, on the bottom line, and they disregard employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, they're basically saying that the value that they're outputting is somehow not the priority. They're only focused on whether or not they're in the black or the red. And that is where I think you're going with this. That's where you start to get into all these problems, because now you're literally doing what everybody says not to do. Don't chase the money. Now you got a massive corporation chasing the money, not listening to the people on the ground who are like actually trying to say like, no, these are a lot of the concerns, the customer isn't getting what he wants, etc. Employees aren't getting what they want, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of times big companies forget. And this is a big thing to take away. Like when you build your own business and as an entrepreneur, your employees are your customers too. They got to be happy. They got to be making sure that the value they're putting out is equally matched by the value you're giving them. So, yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, customers, employees, shareholders. That's that Amazon, Alibaba model. Constantly, we're going to listen to the customers, and then we're going to take care of our staff, and then we're going to listen to our shareholders. And other big companies have that flipped. They listen to shareholders first, which is what dictates how they drive the business and what money looks like and what revenues look like. And that's always been a driver in major companies. It's why they have it flipped. This is why it's tough to be the entrepreneur. It's why it's tough, because the higher up that you go, the more they are going to be money focused, bottom line focused, right? The higher up you go in a company, the more they're going to be bottom line focused. And until that switches, until the higher up you go, the more they are people focused, the more it's HR over the CFO, right? The people that put the HR position in higher regard than the finance position in a company. That's when you'll see this thing switch around. That's when you'll start to see us genuinely caring about customers and people and not just the money. But it's happening. It's happening all over. So we got, what's the change, right? Like, how do we make the change? Could be like, that's the question, is if we're all in agreement, how do we change it?
I think like all these, in terms of all these major issues that we discussed, and I do want to move on in the interest of time here. So I'll give this thought and then I'll move on to the next piece here, is that, I think we're quick to ask the question of what's the solution when we don't truly understand the problem or what the question is. I don't think necessarily anything has to change. I think what we're doing here is for individuals who are taking this path on to understand that there is a difference. So I'll give one more example and then I'll move on here. Is In Born to Run, it discussed the idea of like, and going back to health a little bit, of how the Tara Mara's greatest runners on earth, right? They don't compete or race. They don't come down from their place they live and compete in races, although they could probably clean up the entire world and make tons and tons of money. Why? Because when they see that individuals do that, what happens? They lose the joy of running, and thus they cannot continue to run at that level. Right? So in terms of, to them, does that mean that they never race? No, they race. They compete all the time. Did they come down and race and win some races? Sometimes, yeah. But the number one thing is to never lose the joy of running. To me, that's the parallel that I'm trying to draw here. And I think for most businesses that exist now, and the way we think about business now, has switched that around, has put the win in the race before the joy, has put the money before the energy and the impact, right? And so to me, that's that right there is understanding that piece and having your right order. And bro, we could like, Tara Mars don't know anything about mission statements or anything. These are all modern terms that we've given to these things, right? But the principle, the bare bones understanding of it is do you put the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? Because guess what? It does matter. So what I'll see next, and I'm more than happy. I think we can stretch this out quite a bit. As I have quite a bit of examples for you here, but so I'll say number 3, and I'll go just 3, 4, 5, and you can comment on that in the interest of time, so we can roll out to the next thing here. 5 is that I know there's different types of businesses. Like, you don't have to run the type of business that everybody pushes in your face, right? The same way the media pushes in your face. Oh, he's successful. Why is he successful? Because look at his car, look at his watch, look at his clothes, look at his woman, look at his house, right? These are the things that are put in front of us. So it's like, if I want to be a successful entrepreneur, goes back to number 1, what's your why? But like, what are you using as an example of what success is? And what are you, and thus as a result, you get, I know, here in Silicon Valley, CEOs who really, not that, they lost that joy a long time ago. They're trapped in the prison of their own making, right? So know that there's different types of businesses. Number 4, I would say, if you are working a 9 to 5, get the most out of your job. You're in a business. Be a student of that business before you go off and try to run and try to do your own thing. Because if you're not a student of that business in that context, right, and you're not picking it up, my friend, you ain't gonna be that great in your own business, right? And 1 second here.
Dude, that one is huge. That goes back to that fire and quit thing. I love that. That's big.
Yes, sir. So that's number 4. Get the most out of your job. Be a student of the business while you're there. While you have stability, while you have this going on, crush it there, right? And start your side and build it up. Because what that allows you to do is do what I was just talking about, which is put the joy first, put the energy first. That takes that stress off of you, right? So you're not out here just like being a hungry salesperson and putting that money first. And then the last thing, the 5th thing that you guys can take home here is that 2 things every wealthy person has: real estate and a business. So all yours, guys.
Stu's taking notes.
Always, man. That's why I love these, man. We learn from each other.
That's it. Go back through the 5 again.
All right, top 5 things we're leaving you with. Entrepreneur, 1, what is your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Really examine yourself, know yourself. Why are you doing what you're doing? Be honest, brutally honest with yourself. Why are you doing what you're doing? 2, we've got tons. Instead of 2, we have like 6 book recommendations for you. And we will be creating a book recommendation list that you can access and read. And just quickly running through them here. The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, talking about employee, self-employed, business owner, or investor. The Tax and Legal Playbook. The E-Myth Revisited. The One Thing. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and the Legacy, which I have not read on this list, suggested by Stu. So if you have any questions, you can hit him up. I will be putting that on my list. Number 3 is different types of businesses. Not all businesses function the same. Not all businesses lead to the same lifestyle. Not all businesses give you the same results or the same the same lifestyle. So consider, how do you want to live and what's truly important to you. Number 4 is get the most out of your job. Get the most out of your 9 to 5. Get the most while you have that security. Establish and find that where your energy is brightest, where your contribution is largest, where your impact is most felt. And do that without the pressure to produce and take care of yourself and feed your family. All right. And then number 5, two things that every wealthy person has. 1 is a business and 2 is real estate. So, it again doesn't have to be the type of businesses that we think about. As lots of, if you have done something for 30 years and you have expertise to give, you can start a consulting business, right? There's lots of different ways, but it's very advantageous to have those 2 things as part of your portfolio.
It's huge. It's huge. And, as we're kind of wrapping this thing up, don't forget, we're jumping over to Clubhouse right after this, 9 p.m., jumping over to Clubhouse, 6 p.m. Pacific. Right now, jumping over there. We're going to finish the conversation. But to wrap it up here, guys, again, this entrepreneur talk, this conversation about what it means to be an entrepreneur. And for a lot of you that are listening, you're probably in the process of either thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, or you're already in the process of starting a business or doing something along those lines. Think of these 5 things, right? Understand that owning a business, that just like Kobi said, that number 5, most wealthy people are either going to own a business or own real estate, right? They're going to own one of the 2, if not both. And so which side are you playing in, and or, right, how are you thinking about this? If it is to be, it's up to me. If you're going to create the life that you want, if you're going to, dictate what success is by either who you're looking at or what you internally believe success is for your life, you've got to have some ownership, right? You got to own something. You have to own something. That's it, right? Something has to be owned by you. You cannot go through this like not owning something. So that's how I'll wrap it up. Stu, take us out of here, man, before we jump into Clubhouse.
Yeah, I think my last thing is just going to be the better you mentor and manage yourself, the better you will be able to run your own business, period. Like if you feel that self-discipline and self-motivation are not your strengths, figure it out. Whether it's weightlifting, whether it's relationships, like use whatever you have at your disposal while you're in your 9 to 5 to practice those 2 things: mentor and manage yourself.
Huge. That's it, guys. We're doing it. Another Thursday night in the books for the good life. Thank you for joining us. Hey, hit the thumbs up button, any platform that you're watching us. Share this with a friend. We're coming back every single Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And now for the after party, we're jumping in the Clubhouse. So hopefully we see you guys over there, and we'll see you again next week on another episode of The Good Life. Take care, guys. Enjoy your night.